All right, so what is natural selection? Because that is what we're heading into. Basic natural selection. So look, it's basically the environment. So when persons are animals, right? Let's look at animals. They live in a particular environment. The environment undergoes changes, right? Let's say constantly. So let's say summertime hot, some winter, it's very cold, right? So based on how the organism is structured, some may be suited for summer, some may be suited for winter. Based on the traits that they have, those that have the favorable traits will survive. So natural because it's what the environment, it's nature. And then selection, particular set of traits is being favored. So select natural, nature is doing it. Some set of environmental factors are going to favor a certain set of organisms, all right? So the type of selections, we have directional. And to do these, we need graphs, all right? So we start with directional. Now, whenever you have a bell-shaped curve, right, in any scenario, this out here is one extreme. So this end, that's one extreme. So the bell-shaped curve, it has two extremes. This is an extreme. This is an extreme. All right. And then in here now, you would have the average there. If it was a bell-shaped curve in terms of grade, out here, extreme, it would be extreme, low, extreme, high. Then you have the average in the middle. We're going to apply these bell-shaped curve to disruptive, stabilizing, and directional selection. All right. So directional selection now, based on what is happening in the environment, it is going to favor one extreme. For directional selection, one extreme is favored. And I'm going to use the example with the with the giraffes, right? Giraffe, FFE, giraffes with long necks, giraffe with long neck, let's say medium and short neck, right? So we said that it is favoring one extreme. So in this example, giraffe, if they have tall necks, right, they can reach high up in the trees, right? If they are short, they cannot reach it. Medium, yeah, to some extent. So remember, it's natural selection, we're looking at evolution as well. So the long neck, the environment is selecting the giraffes with long neck because the one with short neck will not reach the food. So over time, you will not have any giraffe with short neck. Now, what will the giraffe with long neck do? They will be able to do what? Reproduce, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, the long neck, was it the environment that gave the giraffe the long neck?
No.
No.
No, exactly. Which means that when they reproduce, what type of giraffe will be produced?
Long neck.
Long neck.
Exactly. So over time, what will happen to the population of giraffe with long neck?
It will increase.
All right. So that means what will happen to this curve?
It will bend over.
Personal.
It's a go shift for favor the
Right.
long neck.
Which means that it now will start out here. So again, because this extreme has now become extinct.
60.
Right? So probably start from like, let's say here, and the new peak will be at a higher height. So in terms of if down here, up here would have been the height. I mean the y-axis would have been height of the giraffes, right? So notice the peak, it would be, no, this would be the number of giraffes. Out here would be the height.
Sir.
Yeah.
But do you think the extreme they are gonna stay at the same place, but like the peak would have just shift a little and bend?
Yeah, peak crush. Hold on, remember two extreme we have, you know.
Oh.
So this extreme out here would be the one with short
Long.
neck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The one out here now would be the one with long neck. On the x-axis, it would be height of neck or length of neck. Length of neck. So the number of giraffe with long neck would increase. Notice again, it would start about here because you don't have any giraffe with short neck. They are extinct. So directional selection, one extreme is favored. So in this example, we're favoring the extreme in the long neck extreme. So if you have to come up with an example, just make up anything in which one extreme can be favored. So it could be, you can use polar bear, no, not necessarily polar bear, just say 4 in terms of 4, right? So you make up a condition where the time is, it was hot, and then probably something happened, the time get cool, right? Time may change. So the organisms with thick fur would progress or would be able to survive and reproduce. And those with a little bit of fur would die out. So you just need to create your two extremes. Is that clear?
Sir, the speckled moth would have come under directional, right?
Yes. Remember that one there. So just right. So just make an extreme where one extreme is being favored over the next one. All right. So in directional selection, just remember one extreme is being favored. So that would be it. All right. And if I asked to explain, you would explain what happened with the giraffe with long neck can reach food, survive to reproduce. So a key thing here is that the offspring must be able to reproduce. All right. After we done explain this, we just list out Darwin's observation. All right, so that is how you do directional selection. You have stabilizing now. No, but this anchor, this is bad for those. All right, stabilizing. For stabilizing now, the kind of like the average is selected. I'm going to put the average. I'm going to put trait. The average trait is selected for, and the two extremes are selected against. All right. So what that means, all right, hold on. Let me just remove this graph here. And if you're doing this, show the before and the after graph, all right? So you can drag the graph 2 times or put 2 curve on the same graph. So before I give an example, if we are eliminating the 2 extremes, right? So we're eliminating out here and we're eliminating out here. How do you think the curve will look?
So it's a go thin like in the middle.
Right, because the average is being selected. Will it still start out here and end out here?
No. No,
Right,
sir.
so it probably start like here and go up. All right.
That have to
So,
stabilize.
right. So with the stabilization, with the stabilizing selection, the 2 extremes are not favorable for them to survive. So for example, let's use climate. Let's say the temperature is 30 or let's say 35 degrees Celsius every day, right? And you have some animals with thick, like really thick. So let's say at that temperature, it insulate them too much. And then you have some with no coat at all. So let's say half of the year, it's really hot, and the next half it is really cold. So the 2 extremes, you have animal with thick fur and no fur, right? And then you have medium fur. So we have 2 times when the time is really hot and when the time is really cold. And that happens 2 times for the year. So when the time is really hot, what will happen to the animals with thick fur?
They will suffer.
All right.
Them are
And
go
when the
boil
time,
up.
right, and they don't. When the time is really cold, what will happen to the animals with no fur?
Them are go dead out.
Be
All right.
extinct.
Cool and die.
Yeah. So you see now stabilization. Any example, once it looks like none of the extreme will survive, that is stabilization. If it seems like something that does not favors neither having thick fur or having no fur, that is stabilizing selection. So you see for the one with the giraffe, right? How could you adjust it to become stabilizing selection? Just to see if you understand. Which one of the next would be favored if it's to be something
First stabilize
stabilizing? Yeah,
medium.
medium, that is correct. So just give me a second. Right. So we would just change this scenario where long neck or short neck is not needed. All right. So this is what you do for stabilizing, directional, and then the final one now is disruptive. With disruptive now, the average is selected against one extreme. In stabilizing, none of the extreme. In directional, the 2 extreme is selected for. All right, so that was stabilizing. Let's do the final one now, which is disruptive. disruptive. I wanted to do, all right, the two extremes by the way, when I put two, the two extremes are selected for on the exam, don't just put that. So like you would say the environmental changes favors the survival of the organisms with the two extremes, right? So in this case, you would put, if we're discussing fur coat, it would favors the organism with thick fur and no fur, right? So when we say the two extremes are selected for, or just one extreme is selected for, what it means is that the current environmental settings, it is suitable for one extreme, the medium, or the two extreme. Right? So what will happen now? Let me ask you, how do you think the graph will look if the two extremes is selected for?
Go up and then go down.
It would go up and then go down, all right? So the height, the peak, it would drop.
The peak would have low.
Right. So it is going to dip. So this part, it is going to be high, right? Because it is selected for. And then it dip because the medium, the average, it's selected against. So just imagine you are in a class in terms of school, either the students are failing or they are doing really well. So there's no in between in this case. So they are doing really poorly or they are doing excellently. So it's like this, all right? So that is what it means. No average. So really good or really bad, really good, all right? So both extremes are selected for. So this graph is disruptive. So nothing, the average is not selected for. So these are the three.
So we have two peak then with the disruptive?
That is correct. The two extremes. All right, so natural selection now. Let's go to drugs and pesticide resistance. So bacteria, right? Before I get that, in all of these examples, the basis of natural selection, right, is about survival of the fittest. They like to use that term, survival of the fittest. What does that mean? When it says survival of the fittest, as you know, there is variation among organisms in a particular species, right? So when we say survival of the fittest, the organisms that have the suitable trait to adapt and survive the environment, that is what is natural selection and the survival of the fittest. The survival of the fittest means some organisms in a particular species will have favorable traits to survive the environment and also to reproduce. We clear on that? Want me to write it? Are we good?
Yes, I write it. Please.
Um, First part essentially, I'm brain gone.
ESS.
Yeah, Jeff. Right, essentially. Just remember, at least just remember this part. Organisms with favorable traits will survive and reproduce, and the ones that don't have it will die out. So, in one sentence, survival of the fittest, organisms with favorable traits survive and reproduce. The ones without it die and become extinct. That is what survival of the fittest essentially means. Is anybody writing?
No, sir.
All right. One second. All right, so natural selection, we also have artificial selection. Oh, before we get there, with the bacteria, right? Clear this. All right, so the same thing. So the reason why, even with like sprays, like I'm just spray like book spray, the antibiotics, they don't work after a while. The reason being, some bacteria, so let's say I have some bacteria, right, in a population, and you apply the antibiotic. So these are the bacteria, and the black dot is the antibiotic. Right? They apply to all of them. Some of them are going to die, not all. All right, so the antibiotic, it will destroy some of the bacteria. But some of them actually survive. Now, those that survive, they are going to reproduce, right? No, when they reproduce, what will those bacteria have?
Antibiotic.
So the bacteria that survived the antibiotics, they would have something in them that made them resistant, right?
Yes, sir.
So when they reproduce,
Sir.
the new bacteria that is produced, will they be susceptible to the bacteria or resistant?
Susceptible.
They would be resistant,
Wait,
meaning
Wouldn't it be resistant?
is it
Wouldn't it be resistant?
right? Because remember now, whatever made them resistant is in their genome. So when they reproduce, they are transferring that whatever made them resistant to the antibiotic, they are passing it on to the next generation.
also,
Remember, you know,
sir,
mhm.
because these, whatever, them bacteria were able to survive the antibiotic. So when
Yeah.
them offsprings are produced, because they are able to survive, that the offspring get the chase from the parents.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right.
that's why them resistant.
That is correct. So
Okay.
that is why now any bacteria that were not resistant would have been destroyed. Only set of bacteria remaining are the ones that are antibiotic resistant. So that antibiotic will now be useless. Understand? So these bacteria that did not die, they are anti, they have antibiotic, they are antibiotic resistant. And so any bacteria that is made, they will be antibiotic resistant. And so what you will have is an entire generation of bacteria that is what?
Resistant.
Right. So this is just like the giraffe with long neck. After a while, you only have giraffe with long neck. So after a time, you only have bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. The same thing with spraying insects and so forth. Something that is they have in terms of the genome, some variation, right, in their genetic material that allows them to survive. Once they survive, what will happen? They are going to do what?
Interbreed and produce more that will survive.
Exactly. So for natural selection and evolution to work, right, for evolution to work, what must happen? The offspring must do what? Apart from surviving, they have to do what?
Interbreed.
Right. So they have to be able to produce more offspring. If they weren't producing more offspring, it wouldn't work.
No, so them would just decrease and dead off over
Exactly. So
time.
they have to, right. Right, let me do this quickly because 6 o'clock now. A minute for go we are told. All right, process of natural selection. I'm just going to add some pointers here. Process of natural selection. Taking this from online. So you must have overproduction of offspring. Remind me to post a link in the chat online. There's a channel that work past paper video. So we just recap here and you can watch the past papers. So before I will post, I'm just going to post the answer to the 2022. So I'm just going to write the answer sometime tonight and send it out. All right, so overproduction of offspring. Individuals within population will have genetic variation. So it's basically of the over, you have to produce a lot of offsprings. Some of them will have the favorable traits. Once they have favorable traits, they survive, right? Produce more offsprings. And the more offsprings that are produced from one generation to the next, it will gradually just increase the amount of offsprings having the favorable traits. All right, can just spend 5 more minutes. I'm just going to do, if you don't have this, just take a screenshot. All right, so examples of artificial selection. What just happened? I'm just going to have to put the name. I can look it up. I just interbreeding and outbreeding I'm seeing here. I'm going to end it with speciation, which is a process of forming new species. Anybody know how we can form a new species? One way, it's a process of forming new species, that is speciation. Common example is geographic, but the proper name, allotropic. Please repeat.
Allopatry.
You're kind of breaking up. Yeah.
So I was asking if it's not allopatry, another term for geo.
Really need to.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Right, so allopathic, this arises from geographic isolation. Right, so basically with this one, just moving quickly. You have some insects. These are insects here. All right, something happened and they are separated. All right. So you have, let's say, lizard on one side, lizard over here. Plenty, plenty food, little food. I'm just moving quickly at this point. All right. So look, the lizard with little food, they would have to develop certain adaptation. All right. So both of them. All right. So this is like a river. All right. So the point is, something is going to separate a population, a species, right? Over time, they develop different adaptations. So till many, many years after, they basically become new species. They have their genome changed. So they are completely different or have distinct features that that makes them different from each other. So geographic isolation, it leads to them finding different ways of surviving. So they, over many years, they become different from each other.
So, sir, like for example, with the same river, you split them in a two. You probably put one in a environment where them have more predator and be
Right.
to survive,
Oh, all that too.
be able to survive. Say one lizard develop where it can camouflage itself, something like
That
that.
is correct. Yeah, man, that good too. Yes. Camouflaging is good, right?
So I can repeat back the explanation of the diagram here about the survival and then somebody.
So a bunch of lizard or any insect you want to use, they are living in a particular area. And for something happen and it separate them. So for example, a river come about, all right? So they are separated from each other. As Demetra was saying, let us say on one side of the land, predator is there. So the lizard now have to find some way of adapting. So probably them develop a new color to camouflage themselves. The lizard on the other side with no predator, they don't need to have any camouflage. So over time, that they are developing new characteristics and our traits that will make them become completely different species. All right.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can just put the names of the others because if we don't stop now, we're not gonna get any tax to government. All right, so sympatric speciation, sympatric speciation. But this one, so with allopatric, it's geographic speciation, right? With sympatric, it's something that prevents them from or isolate them in a reproductive sense. Right? So let me show you this. All right, I'm going to post a picture in the comment section of how sympatric, not in the comment section, in the community section, And for those in the Zoom, I will send it. So I'm going to send you the picture of how sympathetic speciation can arise. Let me send the link in the what's in the chat for the YouTube thing. Where is it? All right, so I'm going to have to end it here. If I can do any later in the night, I will let you know.
All right, sir. Later.
All right.
All right, sir. Thank you. Later.
Yeah, man, later. All right, so for those in the comment section, I sent a link. That person, they work as paper question for bio. They can just click the link and watch it.
Sir, read my message on WhatsApp.
All right.
Sir, go and look at your taxes.
Right. I have to start getting.